Okay, very good. Welcome to the June 9th, 2014 meeting of the Sherborn Board of Selectmen. David, would you like to read the agenda, please?
Sure. Starting off, we'll vote to approve or amend the agenda. And right now, there's a requested amendment from the treasurer to allow an advance of warrant to be signed to make the county retirement system payment as of July 1st. And then add any other topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance, and then a 10-minute public comment period. And then looking at administrative considerations, there's a signature for borrowing authorization, approval of voting machines, request from the town clerk, signing of employment agreement for the CM&D director, and signing of collective bargaining agreement for the Sherborn Police Officers Association, and consideration of special act transmittal letter for expansion of board selectmen to 5 seats. And then at 6:30, a presentation, economic development vision with Harley Kaplan, resident. Then at 7 o'clock, discussion on regionalization with Selectman DeSorga from Medfield. And then we'll look at a list of staff appointments, look at the Board of Selectmen calendar, and consider topics for upcoming meetings, Selectmen reports, then look at routine business. There are no minutes, there are no warrants to sign, and we'll set the next meeting. And then there's an executive session scheduled for discussion regarding strategy for non-union personnel contract negotiations involving the treasurer pursuant to GL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2.
Very good. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment that the town administrator
So
mentioned?
moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. We have a public comment period. If anybody has public comment, Mrs. Tyler.
Excuse me, you're on at 6:30, so pardon me if I share your table here.
Oh, please do it.
I'll share it. Hi, Susan Tyler, 26 Weston Avenue. Got a few comments, but my first one is dealing with the public comment, limited to a total of 10 minutes. I want to know if the Board of Selectmen have come up with a policy as to how they're going to actually do that. If the room is packed and you've got a bunch of hands up, how are you going to call the first person? How are you going to call the last person? And at what point do you say, excuse me, I understand you're in the middle of your comment, 10 minutes, we're going to shut you up. I understand a lot of towns, if you want to implement something like that, that's fine, your prerogative. But there's a lot of towns that I know of, they have a sign-in list at the beginning where they write it down, anybody that has a public comment. Those people are recognized. So I'm wondering, on your 10 minutes of, have you actually thought it out and gone beyond just 10 minutes and that's it? First come, first serve? Or I'll choose you, you, and you, I don't like her, you know.
I know I made the wrong first choice.
Yeah, remember, we're limited to 10 minutes tonight.
Well, we've certainly considered a sign-in policy, but we don't have an official policy yet. So we'll see how it goes tonight. And I think we're probably 3-4 minutes into it.
Well, I could stretch it out because I have a lot of other comments, but I think this is a very important question to pose to you all at this table. If you're going to limit public comment, how are you going to do it so that it's fair across the board?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Table's all yours. Maybe. Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Sturgis.
Just a matter of information, we are posted for 6 o'clock with your meeting. Right now, we're only 2, but as soon as the third member arrives, we will then be
This is for the government study, town government's
study
committee. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Yes, Carol.
I just have a question about your executive session. I had asked the town administrator about this earlier, but he apparently forgot to get back to me. We do not currently have a treasurer contract. So I'm curious as to how that can be the topic of an executive session.
It's basically for contracting for the replacement of the treasurer. and we had that cleared through town council.
And so you've decided already then to appoint somebody with a contract?
That's my assumption, and that's why I scheduled the executive session, because they needed to discuss that.
Okay, and when did that happen?
When we did the agenda a week ago.
You made the decision then?
No, what I told you, I think Thursday or Friday, is that I was waiting to hear back from town council on the wording that I had proposed. And I did hear back, and I have the email that I can share with you.
Okay. Ahead of time would have avoided my question.
Yeah, well, you saw me earlier today.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Good, within the 10-minute limit, that's great. We have a borrowing authorization. Is Pete here?
No.
Okay.
No, he's not.
Do we have what we need from him?
Yes, this is, basically it's Chapter 90 funds for
Okay.
different projects. It lists out the projects. Do you want me to read them?
Yeah, you might as well. People might be interested. You could explain what's going on.
It's a $219,214 state anticipation loan for the purpose of funding Chapter 90 projects. The borrowing consists of the following projects: Renewal North Main Street, $128,000; Goulding Street East, $55,000; townwide markings, $9,500; townwide potholes, $6,800; townwide guardrails, $16,700; and Green Lane renovation, $3,000. And the loan documents are attached, and the interest rate is 0.55%.
So this is where we're having the town clerk witness us signing off on this, so we don't have to come in another time.
Yes.
Excellent.
And David, what's the status over there on East Goulding? Because that was a subject of discussion in another meeting.
It was supposed to be open today as a dirt.
Okay.
But it would be paved. I haven't driven over to visually inspect it, but I was told it was open.
Okay.
It
So the
is
culvert
back,
was replaced?
Yeah, it was replaced with 3 culverts, 2 large ones and 1 smaller one.
And how'd you turn that around so quickly?
Originally, we were discussing with Concom about two 48-inch box culverts. Those are cement-made. It's tough to order those this time of year when everybody, on an emergency basis, when everybody has their orders in months before. So we put it, we met with the engineer and said what other alternative would work, and he said 2 36-inch culverts and I think a 24. And then we looked around to see how quickly we could get those, and it was a matter of days instead of weeks. And we called the, I think it was Russo Brothers was the contractor, and they said they could get in there immediately and do it, so.
Great. Well,
In the packet was this proposal from the treasurer to pay the Middlesex retirement system a lump sum payment in order to save $14,000. And I didn't see that on the
that's what we just
agenda.
voted to amend the agenda to add that.
Okay,
So we can take that up, I guess, after the
I missed that.
other
Sorry.
ones. No, that's okay. All right, so we have the
But Pete's
borrowing
here if we need
authorization.
him as well.
Oh,
Oh,
great,
he is
Pete is
here.
here.
Oh, good.
So all we have to do is sign, right? That's-
Yeah,
We'll take a vote and sign.
They're signing in 3 spots, and the clerk has to witness.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the borrowing
So moved.
authorization?
What's the amount of the borrowing?
$219,000.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
This is where you watch us, Carol, huh?
You're under my eagle eye.
Okay.
I'm signing. Are you watching?
If 2 of us are signing at the same time, can you see us both? Official witness? All right. All right, there's that.
Okay.
That's the one spot.
Perfect.
Carol can,
Okay, thanks.
so David, Carol, I think needs to countersign those.
Okay.
Great. Next up, Carol, good, you're coming up. The next up is the approval of the voting machines.
Are we going to do the other thing? The,
Oh, do you do the other thing while Pete's here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to do that now in this section?
Sure. Yeah, we can do
Might as
that.
well, right?
Yeah, well, he's here.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have a motion on approving the payment in anticipation?
So moved.
Okay.
Second?
Anticipate,
This
advance
is-
of warrant.
Advance of warrant.
Yep, I
This
second.
is because the retirement system advises us, or our treasurer advises us, that if we pay in lump sum, we pay $700,612. But if we pay in two payments, we pay $714,222, being a difference of $13,610. So the treasurer has suggested that we save the taxpayers $13,610. Is that a fair summary?
And of that 700 and rough grand, $500,000 of it is funding a portion of the unfunded pension liability, and the rest of it is paying benefits on a real-time basis. Is that a fair way to describe it, Pete? Yep. Yes.
That's great. So do we have a motion?
Yeah, you got the motion seconded,
All
yeah.
in favor? Great.
Yeah, that will be on the next warrant that you sign.
Understood.
Okay.
On the first warrant of the year, so you will actually end up.
You want to go ahead and sign it?
This is just to allow it in advance.
Does this have to be witnessed by the town clerk? No.
No.
All right, and I think...
I'm watching anyway.
Oh, there she is. I was looking for you over there.
Okay. So Carol, you're up next. Approval of voting machines.
I am. As you are now aware, even if you weren't before, there is a statute that requires a municipality
Thanks, Pete.
that changes voting machines to inform the Secretary of State 120 days before the first election in which they'll be used. Now, technically, what we have is not a voting machine. It's a ballot tabulation device. It's something that actually counts the votes. But it still falls under this statute. Municipal clerks are also mandated by statute and regulation to perform a test of the ballot tabulation device, the ballots, and the programming chip before each election. And our voting machine, our ballot tabulation machine, failed that test. And the vendor came to fix it, could not, brought me a substitute to use for the election, which I was then able to test within the required time frame. The machine that we have until May of this year was actually the best there is that was certified in Massachusetts. But they haven't been made since 2008, and ours has been living on borrowed time for several years. And we've had several failures, partial failures, I guess is how I would describe that, that we've been able to overcome. But this May, the Secretary of State certified 2 new ballot tabulation devices for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And since ours has failed, this seems like the perfect time to purchase that. And I've already talked to the advisory committee about securing funding for that. We're going to wait till the fiscal year rolls over, July 1, before doing that. So what I need from all of you gentlemen tonight is a vote to go to this new system. And I've already talked to our chief procurement officer about the process. And basically, because the vendor is a state contractor, it's go. So I'm looking for something along the motion that I think you have in your packet.
Great.
So if I could say a couple of things.
Yeah, do you have questions or comments? Sure.
Comments that this is a good move for the town. Some of my other towns are moving to new voting machines also for almost the same reason. So I've heard this description of problems with the old machine in other locations. This is a pretty good machine. It's safer, it's more secure, it's accurate, it's passed the tests, it's the wave of the future. So I am 100% in favor of this, because remember, at the end of the day, this is a democracy, people vote, and we have to have a means of getting accurate results of the expression of the voters. This machine does that. So may I make a motion?
Others may have questions, too. Yeah.
Yeah, so Carol, I heard you say you're not putting pressure on the reserve fund for this fiscal year to purchase this, and it's a $7,000 item.
Right.
Do you have those funds in your budget for next year, or you expect to get it out of reserve fund transfer next year?
I expect, actually, I asked for it for this year, and it was the advice of the accountant that we wait until the new fiscal year.
But you would ask for a reserve
Yes.
fund transfer for that then? Okay, understood.
My
Thanks.
question's more mechanical. How do these work? Are they similar to the current ones, or?
I'm actually glad you really asked that, because I'd love to give a little, the current machines up until this May that are out there are scanning devices that scan those little ovals, within a particular. The new machines that have just been certified are a whole new generation, and they actually record an image of the entire ballot, such that if we chose, we could stick a thumb drive in the machine after the election and pull out an actual image of every ballot, so that it's almost like a double backup. Besides counting the votes, it also records the images. This is, as Paul called it, the wave of the future.
And people will still fill in the ovals with a pencil?
Our ballots will be exactly the same. They'll actually be a penny, perhaps more than a penny, a piece less, due to this new technology.
Okay.
And the other thing I should have said, this vote that you all, I hope, are going to take tonight is not in time for the September primary. So for the September primary, I will have to rent a machine of the kind that we have now.
So, Paul, you made a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Sherborn, do hereby vote to replace the AccuVote tabulating system by purchase lease or lease with an option to purchase with the image cast tabulating system, and do hereby order the use of the image cast tabulating system at primaries, preliminary elections, and elections of state, city, or town officers in the town of Sherborn, and thereafter at all primaries and elections of state, city, or town officers in the town of Sherborn, and furthermore, until otherwise ordered by the Sherborn Board of Selectmen, said machines shall be used at primaries and preliminary elections and for voting for the officers to be elected at such elections, and for the taking of the vote upon questions submitted to the voters.
Second.
And I would ask for a friendly amendment to delete the word city, where it's used twice, so it would just say state or town officers.
Accepted.
Okay. So any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you very much.
All right, next, signing of the employment agreement for Director of CM&D. David, what does this entail?
Basically, this is just open session signing of the employment contract after successful negotiations with an employee. So Ed Wagner was, he's been here, I think, his first contract expires in June 30th. I think it was 4 years.
2011 is the date on this other one, I think.
Okay, so it's a 3-year contract. And expires June 30th, 2014. And we completed negotiations with Mr. Wagner and made some edits to his contract, and now we're looking to have it signed in open session.
He may have been here longer. I think there was a time that he worked without a contract or working on a contract.
There was definitely longer than 3 years, yeah.
And David, this makes all the changes that we had discussed in our negotiating sessions?
Yes, there's a summary page there about
Yep.
showing the agreed.
Okay.
So I would move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
No?
All in favor? Okay. And you have an original that we would sign?
Yeah, do you want to hold the documents till after?
Yes, yeah, we can hold it till
Okay.
after.
You're not even going to share any of that with the public?
Well, it's a public document, isn't it?
Yeah. As soon as they,
Prior to the vote, was there any discussion to let the...
Thanks for the public input.
Public input? 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? We don't even know what you just did.
it's a 3-year contract starting July 1st, 2014,
Going to 2017.
going
So
through
does the
June
public have a comment-
30th,
any
2017.
Well, it wasn't a public hearing on his contract, it was a signing of his contract. If
Correct, but you had multiple executive sessions which the public could not put input to, and now you've come here tonight to sign a contract that the public has never been able to put an input into. Am I the only one that sees a problem?
what does the board
I mean,
want to do about this?
the director works for the residents of this town. And we have no input into a contract. I mean, call me naive, new to this process as far as putting in a contract, but we have no input, the residents, everybody in this room, anybody that's watching, we had no input? Yes or no?
I don't think you had any input, Susan. I mean, we've heard from you and others about comments about the CMD director and that department.
That was during public comment.
That's right.
During a public comment, which you're now limiting to 10 minutes, but there has been no input requested or provided just on this one topic.
Nor have you addressed anything anyone's brought up.
Or were there questions that you wanted to negotiate the contract in a public session? I don't think that's very practical.
No, no.
No, but if you don't think I've shared some concerns that haven't been brought up, haven't been discussed outside of just public comment, then your memory's quite short. Because I was told I would be invited to a meeting and we'd discuss some of these issues.
We were going to talk about the holes in the ball field, which I think we've talked about.
I think we haven't.
No, we have not.
Okay.
We were going to discuss.
No, I mean, it seems to me, first of all, we have the authority to negotiate into these contracts under the bylaws of the town of Sherborn, and we're elected to do that, and we're elected to use our best judgment. Your input has been provided. I've seen your emails when I was chair, now Mike's chair, and I support the approach that Mike's taking right now, which is, we're not here to let the public negotiate a contract which has already been negotiated. It's been signed by the other party. We've just moved to approve. We've approved signing the contract. There've been a whole bunch of edits, and, we've gone through case point by point of the contract. So I mean, I don't know what else you would do. I'd defer to the legal folks here, and I think, so that's all I'll say at this point.
That's fine. But I raised some issues, and I made it clear I had a lot of issues. And there was an illegal trench that was exposed in a field, and you will remember the email that Michael suggested that you invite me in here to discuss it, while it was still an open trench. That hasn't been dealt with. The building inspector was never notified. It wasn't dealt with. It hasn't been dealt with. So you signed the contract, but there's still issues out there that exist.
Okay.
It's well documented,
And
if
Don,
you want to see the documentation.
you
Any
never
input on this,
asked for public input.
I would like to see the contract made public, like all
It's
contracts.
a public
Contract.
document.
It's absolutely
Yeah.
a public document.
So that should be posted somewhere where people can look at it.
Right.
I mean, I have no problem if you want to list out some of the major terms of the agreement, just for folks to know without seeing the document, so they don't have to wait. But I wouldn't change my vote on this thing.
I mean, I can go down through, but I don't know if
I don't know, I defer to you.
Mr. Wagner was supposed to be here, but
He is here.
He's here, he's in the back.
Oh, there he is. Oh, I'm sorry. He was sick earlier today. I can go down and read through that summary sheet of the items that were agreed on, but I don't, in the past, I don't know if you've done that. I think you just signed an
Yeah,
open
neither
session
one you
to
signed.
validate the contract, and then you made it a public document.
It's a public document as soon as we
Right.
sign it. I mean, it's a public document now.
Aren't we planning to sign it now, or we're saving it till later? I mean,
We could sign it right now, we could sign it at the end of the meeting when we're going to sign the other documents.
Right.
okay.
Do you have the original to sign?
I just
We'll just pass it
sign
down,
it,
let's just sign it.
and then, no, on the next item on the agenda, sign that at that time.
Okay.
All right? Would
Okay.
we do that at that?
Yeah, we'll sign that. And next is the police collective bargaining agreement, David.
Thank you.
Again, this is an open session signing of a collective bargaining agreement that had been negotiated for the past, well, there was a memorandum of agreement that was signed in the fall of 2013 that included a 1% increase in the pay, and then recommended changes to the rest of the contract, and that's what we've been doing this last few months, is editing and making this contract meet both the union standards and our standards to eliminate old references and that kind of thing.
It's been
So-
cleanup, just
Yeah,
pretty much
cleanup.
cleanup. No new terms.
But the terms did not change since last fall, when this has already been paid out. This was paid out retro to July 1st, 2013. So this is just the public signing of that final contract.
Okay.
So I move to approve our signature of that contract as edited.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just under discussion, I guess we should reflect the fact that this was the subject of much discussion, and we did have input from the chief, who had given us, I think, his advice that this was a reasonable contract to sign. And I think it's important to have peace with our unions and peace with our department heads and our major employees of the town, so it's good to settle contracts.
Yeah, I would just say that I thank the union for their patience in getting the paperwork done here, because I know it's been a tedious process, but here we are. And the union, I thought, was very creative, working with the town for what's in everybody's mutual best interest. So I think we've got a great team on the police force, and this contract reflects that, and it went through the budget process, the budget cycle, without any delays. So it's great.
I just want to point out the memorandum of agreement was signed last fall, and that's when that became public, and the terms, but no terms have changed since then.
So I'm looking forward to put some ink on that paper.
This is retroactive to July of 2013, so
Yes.
it picks up a year that's already passed,
Almost passed, that's right.
and
2 years to go.
2 years to go.
We'll be a little tougher next time on these guys.
There were several memorandum of agreements that were incorporated into this, including the continuance of the Pittman schedule.
Yep.
I'm signing it already, even though we haven't voted. A lot of work goes into these contracts, whether it's for a department head or for the union. It involves council, it involves the town administrator extensively. The board has had a number of executive sessions on these things. And we do listen to suggestions and comments, and we do try to include in agreements things that make sense from a public policy point of view. And I think this agreement reflects that, as did the prior one.
Okay. Do we have a vote?
We have to vote. We
Yeah.
moved. I
Moved
think we
and seconded.
seconded.
So all in favor?
Excellent. All right.
Okay. There you go.
Oh, I ran out of ink. Sorry, Jim.
No.
Just
Well, it's got
kidding.
2 signatures, it's fine.
I have a pen if you need it. You can sign as well.
All right, that's good.
And can we make sure this is available for the public, too?
Okay. Yes. George?
I noticed that in the C&D contract, paragraph 4, there's a performance evaluation provision.
If you say so, yeah.
Did you say so? You don't know?
Did you read it?
Yeah, we're not negotiating this contract now. I mean, do you have a question about the agreement, or?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I was wondering if performance evaluations were performed last year.
David?
No, there are several department heads that haven't had annual performance evaluations that we've been catching up on. There was one performed this year, and then the last one, I think, was by Dan Keyes shortly before he left, which would be 2 years ago.
Let me understand the answer. Before you signed or negotiated this contract, there was a performance evaluation?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. It was conducted about 3 months
Is
ago.
that a public document?
No, it's not.
Did the selectmen have that when they negotiated this?
Yes.
Next is the consideration of special act transmittal letters to Senator Ross and Representative Linsky.
These are a result of Article 17 that was passed at the annual town meeting on April 29th. It expands the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5 with a specific process to be followed. And these are the letters that go to the legislative delegation to propose to have a special act passed that comes back to the town.
Does anybody have any comments on these, or?
No, I would move to approve the chair signing these letters as drafted and
Okay.
sending them.
Do you want to read them, David? Or, I mean,
If you pass them
if
back,
people
I
are
can read
interested,
them.
or?
Very interesting.
Okay, good.
There are 2 letters. They're identical. One is to Representative Linsky, one is to Senator Ross. On April 29th, 2014, by a majority voice vote of the voters attending its annual town meeting, the town of Sherborn authorized the Sherborn Board of Selectmen to petition the legislature to increase the number of selectmen in Sherborn from 3 to 5 by approving the enclosed warrant article. By this letter, I am making you aware of the town's vote in this matter, while also conveying that a majority of the Board of Selectmen believes that this change would not be in the best interest of the town of Sherborn.
Okay. So we have a motion, a second.
I moved it, yeah.
Okay. Further discussion?
Are you going to take any public comment?
Sure. Do you have public comment on this? That's fine.
Yeah, I don't think this is a very accurate description of the vote. The advisory committee unanimously approved this warrant article. Town meeting vote was, while not a recorded tally, was overwhelmingly in support. So I just don't think it's a fully accurate description of the vote at town meeting, particularly in the context where the Board of Selectmen is stating that it believes the change would not be in the best interest of the town of Sherborn. I think in that context, you need it to be fully accurate, and this is not fully accurate.
What's inaccurate about it, Chuck?
The suggestion that it is a majority, a simple majority, in fact, was unanimously approved by the advisory committee, and while it was a voice vote, it was an overwhelming vote in favor of it. It wasn't a simple majority.
Do we know that?
Yes.
Yeah, those of us who were present know that.
There was an overwhelming majority?
Yeah.
The only nays I remember were from the Board of Selectmen.
So I just don't think this is a completely accurate and fair summary of what occurred at town meeting.
Okay. Peter?
I have a similar objection in that you three are elected by the town to represent the town, to administer the town, but to administer the town and represent the wishes of the town. And the wishes of the town were quite clearly made. And the article directed you to petition the legislature for this change on behalf of the town. Now, the fact that your first several sentences do that and your final sentence undoes it is a total disservice to the town. I don't understand how in good conscience you can do that, knowing that there's a high likelihood that the legislature will not consider this favorably. How can you do that in good conscience?
We're stating the opinion of the board. We're not saying anything other than the board's view on that issue.
A majority of the board.
Majority of the board, that's right.
That has to be stated.
That's disingenuous in the extreme, and you know
These are
it.
personal opinions. We, the townspeople, clearly voted what it was that we wanted to happen, what the view of the townspeople were. All you need to, my understanding, you don't even have to send a letter, but to interject your personal opinions into a letter that was clearly decided by the townspeople, which the townspeople put you all up at that table to represent us. And now you're interjecting your own personal feelings into a letter to the state. And that is not proper and fair to the people that we town meeting and voted.
I'm comfortable with the wording for a couple of
I'm sure
reasons.
you are.
And I'll tell you why. I'm up here in my service to the town, I try to think of what's in the best interest of everybody in the town. And I think if you heard when I gave some of my remarks at town meeting, I talked about the distinction between voters, taxpayers, and residents. And at the end of the day, I feel that I should represent all of the residents of the town of Sherborn. And I also have judgment that I bring to bear. That's based on my judgment, I think I decide what I consider is in the best interest of the town. That's reflected here in this last statement that was drafted, and I agree with it. So, of the voters that approved the warrant article that authorized the Board of Selectmen to petition the legislature, not direct, as Peter said, but authorized, that represented less than 10% of, I think closer to 5% of the population of the town of Sherborn. And I'm concerned about the full population of the town of Sherborn. So I just share my position on that and why I'm comfortable with this wording.
I would love to
And I hope
see-
you respect that position. Thank
I would
you.
love to see two things. First of all, I would love to see your survey of the 95% that you said.
I didn't say I had a survey, and you know that.
And secondly, I would like to see the advisory's position stated, because if you're going to state your position, in fairness, state the
It's a fair point.
advisory position.
It's a fair point.
Mr. Chairman, it appears to me that both the chair and
It's the clerk. I'm the clerk. I'm in the cheap seat, so.
are very much entitled to express their personal opinion to the legislature about the quality or the importance of the petition for special legislation. That's not what you've done. You've taken two votes and made a majority out of them from the Board of Selectmen, and you've stated that it's the Board of Selectmen's position that it's not in the best interest of the town. That's substantially different from what Peter is arguing, and it's substantially different from what you've argued. You have a right to your personal opinion. You don't have a right to represent that personal opinion as a vote of a Board of Selectmen that's elected by, I might add, a very small majority. So I would ask you to rewrite the letter and express it as it is. It is a personal opinion. It's not the Board of Selectmen's opinion, or it shouldn't be the Board of Selectmen's opinion.
Can I state my position?
Sure.
At a meeting or two ago, this issue came up, and I said then, and I'll say now, that the seat that I occupy is not my seat. It belongs to the people of the town. And I am guided by their wisdom. Whatever votes that they take, I see my role here is to implement it as best I can. So I have said in the past, and I'll repeat it now, that I'm in support of a stronger letter. So I think if we get to a vote, to be a split vote here. That's why it says majority of the board rather than a unanimous vote of the board.
I'd also point out that the Sherborn Governance Task Force was authorized at the previous town meeting. There's no mention about the recommendation or its vote. I mean, if we're going to be talking about every board that weighed in on this before town meeting voted, this is a less than fulsome response. I would recommend deleting everything after making you aware of the town's vote in this matter, full stop. Unless you want to walk through every board's discussion. The advisory committee's summary of that article was especially effective and well done. It was a unanimous vote. The governance task force made a presentation at town meeting that's not mentioned in the letter. So I just think it's an incomplete and therefore misleading letter.
That vote authorized the Board of Selectmen to petition the legislature. It didn't say anything about the advisory committee, didn't say anything about the town governance task force. I'm aware of those votes.
The Board of Selectmen to weigh in with its personal opinion after town meeting vote.
After the town meeting.
Well, we would have two choices, I guess. We were authorized to submit it. We could either submit it or not submit it. This is a different approach.
You don't have that option.
All right, well, that's...
I don't believe you have the option to not submit.
And
And I would suggest to you also that the reason the word authorized is there was that on the advice of town council. And town council indicated to me that it would be impolite to order you to do something. If you force the task force to order you to do something, then I will collect 200 signatures and call for a special town meeting. So keep in mind that we were courteous to the Board of Selectmen, a lot more courteous than the Board of Selectmen seems to be to the residents of
To
this
the
town.
residents.
Well, my understanding is the town clerk has already submitted this article to the legislature,
That's
so
why you don't have an
they
option.
have that. Well, understood, so
So-
I'm at a loss for why this is
So write
a...
your personal opinion to the legislature.
It's our judgment.
Judgment, write it. That's your judgment.
Call it a judgment.
I don't care what you do as persons. I do care what you do as a Board of Selectmen.
What do you want to do?
I already made a motion. I'm comfortable with this wording. I understand all the points they're making. I think it's already, the water is under the bridge and over the dam at this point, given town clerk has already submitted it.
Taking a vote of the official body of this town, Board of Selectmen, and sending it off with an incomplete explanation of what you've done. A number of speakers tonight have indicated that. I've indicated that you can, in fact, and should, if you feel strongly about it, send in a personal opinion to the legislature. I don't believe you should send in a vote of the Board of Selectmen in light of the fact that a number of the bodies that are responsible as you are to make suggestions, have made those suggestions as a body. And they were accepted. Your vote is inconsistent with that acceptance. Now, I would ask you to reconsider and submit it as an individual statement of
Well, the
judgment.
other alternative that had been suggested early on, I think, was two letters. One, a follow-up letter from us saying, the essence of the last line, which he's
Either two
suggesting.
letters?
So two letters. One, the letter that says, here's the vote that's been taken.
Right.
I don't know if that's technically petitioning, and maybe there's stronger wording needing to be made where we petition.
You can petition
And
in
separately,
a line
but
sentence.
separately, we do the letter as, I think you might have suggested earlier, a separate letter that captures the fact that two of us, anyway, think it's not in the best interests of the town.
So what would that letter say?
Just more words to the last line. I don't know, it's
I would strike everything in the existing letter down after as suggested and write your own personal letter, put in anything you want in it.
Any individual citizen has the right to petition David and Richard, as does the Governance Task Force Committee. And we all have the right to make them informed about the process and the various votes of the town bodies.
And you plan, I think I saw your agenda, you plan to do that anyway, don't you? I think
As
that's
a committee,
an
right?
agenda item on your committee this evening that you're going to
We're going to discuss
draft
it.
a letter, or you're discussing the
We're
drafting
discussing
of a
it.
letter?
But you're
Yes.
objecting to this committee drafting a letter, but your committee's okay with
I
drafting.
think our vote may depend on what you all do. I mean,
Our
it's-
vote
I
is-
I don't think this is an accurate letter at all, and I think it's, so we posted it as an agenda item to be discussed at our meeting. We've not decided what we're doing.
And if we do send a letter, it would be consistent with the vote of the town meeting.
I would hope so.
Well, we recommended it.
We would hope your letter would be.
I think it is.
It isn't.
No,
it's
not.
not.
The selectmen are not in favor of it.
You can't really believe that.
Why do we go to town meeting to vote if you're not going to listen to our vote? Even if we're 5%, we get to town meeting. The other 95% could get to town meeting, but shouldn't you give us the right that we're there to vote and you should listen to our vote? Why do we go to town meeting if, Peter, you say that's such a small part of our population? I don't quite understand.
If we extend-
It's an old New England custom to have a town meeting. Everybody can come. If they don't want to come, then why do you listen to the people who don't come?
And primarily because of the Pulte project, there was a much larger turnout than normal. It was not 5%, it was closer to 10%. The recorded votes were in the 450 range, so that's about 10%. And if you apply that logic, then no town meeting vote matters and is binding. You know, if you're gonna-
Don't get us wrong. We're not saying the town meeting vote doesn't matter, Joe.
Yeah,
Peter
did.
made the comment that it was a distinct minority of the overall
Yeah.
electorate, the voting electorate.
He did.
So I'm responding to Peter's argument that because there was a small turnout, it wasn't that small, at town meeting, therefore that makes it a less valid vote. I just don't understand that rationale. That would apply
Say
to
it's less valid.
every town meeting that I've been to since I've lived in Sherborn.
If you take and extend Peter's argument, we shouldn't be buying a new fire engine.
Yeah.
No, because apparently, excuse me, I have to interject, there's a difference between, in one member's view, there's a difference between a voter versus a taxpayer versus a resident. I'm sorry, we're all residents, we're all taxpayers, and you know what? The people that show up at town meeting and take the time to be involved versus the ones that are suing over a cell tower because they didn't get involved, the people that show up at town meeting and vote should be recognized. And our votes, we take the time to be involved, we shouldn't be questioned. The people that get involved and show up at town meeting are no less than the people that don't show up to vote. Thank you.
And I ask you the question, Peter, again. You say there's 95% of the people who you're trying to represent, and I'm asking you again. Have you talked to them? How many? And are they supporting this kind of proposition?
No, obviously not. I'm just,
No,
what I've
That's
said.
enough, that's enough.
That's fine.
No, you're, okay. So you can't represent them.
But I think Carol wants to be heard, so
I have
Town
several
clerk be heard.
points. First of all, Peter, I do not buy your argument about the groups in town and only a few shouldn't drive the town.
I'm not saying that argument, so please don't put words into my mouth. Thank you.
Well, you want to say it to me again so I understand?
I said that there were 5 to 10% of the people at town meeting. And part of what I try to do as I sit up here as a volunteer is to look out for what I think are the best interests of the whole town.
Okay. Let me remind you then that you were put in that seat by that small...
I totally understand that.
Okay. Second point, when I questioned town council about the phrasing in that warrant article, in that the vote would authorize the Board of Selectmen, and I questioned why doesn't it say would direct the Board of Selectmen or require the Board of Selectmen? First of all, it's not courteous. Second of all, she said if we use the word authorize, the Board of Selectmen should be honor bound to petition the legislature and not pull this nonsense at the end of the letter. If you guys are to send that kind of a letter, that goes against everything that town meeting stands for. It goes against everything the town government stands for. I would just be appalled to see you guys do something like that. You know, Sherborn does not have a sterling reputation at the state level, and to do something like that would just confirm the opinion that many hold. So I really urge you, don't do that. Rethink it. Do the minimum if that's what you feel you need to do, but don't cloud the issues by putting your personal opinions in that letter. Thank you.
Sure, Carol.
Have you heard even one voice in this room, other than your own, too, that think your letter is a good idea? You haven't.
We're the minority.
And we're a really, really tiny minority, but you know, we're the concerned minority. We're the people that have made the effort to know what's going on, came out here and tried to basically serve the honor of this town and ask you to do the same. Thank you.
Do a motion with no second.
I think if we edit the thing as they suggest, and reconsider a separate letter if that's what we're urged to do, we can do that.
Yeah, I guess the question is, the town clerk has already transmitted this to the legislature. Is there anything left for us to do?
That's a good question.
Is this letter necessary?
So Carol, what's your?
I forwarded the article, the certification of the article to our representative and senator because town council told me that I could do so. However, as I pointed out before, you guys should feel honor bound to also send a letter saying, here's the article that was voted at town meeting. Please take it into consideration. And I hope you will feel that honor-bound duty.
The other reason to have it coming from the Board of Selectmen is the warrant article, as you recall, authorized the Board of Selectmen to negotiate amendments that were consistent with the spirit of the warrant that was approved. So, as George indicated, Town Council advised the Governance Task Force Committee not to direct you to do it, but on hindsight, perhaps we should have, because I think this letter is inconsistent with the clear vote at town meeting. And you're the body that's going to be negotiating any amendments consistent with the language in the warrant article. So I just think you are duty bound to convey the petition to the court, and I would edit it as I recommended earlier.
But Chuck, where are we going to add 2 more people to this table?
Oh, come on, Joe.
Oh, makes you sit closer together.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, I'm comfortable amending it as was suggested by striking the last part while also conveying that a majority of the Board of Selectmen believes that this change would not be in the best interest of the town. I hear what they're saying, I understand. If I were of like mind, I'd be making the same arguments. And I think we should consider sending a separate letter or even just phone calls to the Senator Ross and David Linsky to say, you know, we've done this because we were authorized. We even advised, I remember sitting with the Governance Task Force, and I said, how come you're not directing us to do this? And I didn't really quite get an explanation other than a smile from Mr. Shea there. But nonetheless, here we are. Not directed, but authorized and honor bound. And
So you have a motion?
so I would move to submit the letters as, but amending them to end at the word at the word matter.
Okay. Paul, it's a very pretty airplane you've drawn.
And that takes out the last 2 sentences?
Takes out the last 2 lines there, while also conveying that a majority of the Board of Selectmen believes, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'll second that.
Okay. Further discussion? You all in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Thanks for the input. We represent you as well.
As well as what?
As well as we think we need to, huh?
Thank you, Peter, on that smile that you just gave me.
Come on, George.
I think
Boy, it's
Carly's up.
Tough crowd.
Once again, Peter, you've slowed down my agenda.
Yeah, he's blaming me here. I don't know.
Carly, go ahead.
I'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen for letting me be in front of you and make some proposals. The objective of my proposals tonight are basically three. One objective was to roll back taxes in the town. The second was to keep the town rural. And the third is to keep the residents in the town. And that was the undertaking that I did, and put together a list of recommendations for the town. The first section of this is articles for warrants. And the reason why I am putting this down as articles for warrants is so that we can start moving the process forward. I think the concern amongst many people in the town of Sherborn is that projects just get stuck in committee and never leave a committee, and as a result, nothing ever happens. Some of the recommendations that I'm making, I personally do not like myself. But then again, I do not like paying taxes either. So you make the recommendations, and you let the people decide. Clearly, in the town of Sherborn, democracy will play out. So by having these on the articles as soon as possible, because I know they mentioned that probably won't be picking up until the fall or December, we can start the process of talking amongst the town residents, and we can move this process forward. So the first recommendation that I have for the town is to declare an economic development zone a half mile from town center. This will allow easier zoning requirements for commercial and residential building. This will mean changing the Board of Health and building codes to match the state regulations. Increase the ability to build affordable elderly housing and help bring enterprise downtown Sherborn. As you know, there's less development now in Sherborn than there was 50 years ago. It is time for a change, and it's time to raise revenue in the town by looking towards developing the downtown area. I mentioned these articles once. I'm really hoping that the selectmen themselves will be bringing this to articles. I know I can get the people to support this for articles, but I'm really hoping that you would take the lead. And again, I'm not asking you for your support for recommending these things. I'm recommending your support for opening this up for discussion. That's what I'm looking for, that we start the process. The economic development zone is the good first step. The second step is to establish a working group of local business owners and residents to determine if moving the tennis courts and ball fields near the new Pine Hill Access Road, in which this will open up 6 acres for development. If this is not feasible, then develop land along the new Pine Hill Access Road. The concept behind this is to develop a mercantile concept development with small stores on the bottom and 50 or so affordable elderly housing units on top. This will not only bring business and residents to the downtown area, but also generate revenue. And the third recommendation for articles for warrant is to allocate resources to develop a housing production plan. Right now, we're in need of approximately 109 units. I think if we were to establish the first 2 of these 3 articles, we'll be well on our way in accomplishing our objective. So this is the 3 things that I recommend for articles for warrants for next year's meeting. The next recommendations I have are recommendations that I'm hoping to get some support from not only from the selectmen, from all people involved in the community. And that is, 1, and there's 3 top recommendations. 1 is to sell or develop the recently purchased land next to the town hall. Either you develop it or you sell it. You put it into a farmer's market, you put it into a solar field, but you got to do something with that land. The second is to move the current community maintenance building to behind Laurel Fields and develop those 3 prime acres of land. The third recommendation is to change the current building codes and Board of Health codes to match the state of Mass codes for existing construction only. Not new construction, but for existing construction. This alone will generate hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue to the town. These are my top 3 recommendations. What follows is several other recommendations. 1, pay to throw for garbage. The more you throw, the more you pay. The town of Plymouth did it this year. First year recycling was up 36%. Municipal solid waste was down 43%. 2, no capital projects unless for safety or to save money in the long run until all debt is paid off. Third, enlarge and run the cemetery as a business comparable to others which are run commercially. Fourth, establish locations for solar fields. Fifth, establish a town forest for commercial trees, which means change the farming habits in that area and develop trees that could be commercially sold later on. This would not only help the town, but also help the school system and have the kids run it. It's a terrific idea for developing the use of the town forest. 6, run the community maintenance CMD department for revenue enhancements. Sell off of wood products and possibly even of their services. If they're going to be lying, if there's no work to be done, then maybe they can provide services and they can make extra money and the town can make money as well. 7, establish a town store. Consignment run by high school students. This would be maybe in that mercantile businesses, but it's establish a town store. Now that we have extra ballot machines, that would be a perfect thing to be selling in these town stores.
Ballot machines?
Hold on a second. Wait till I finish, then you can make comments, but hold on a second. But, that's a town store. 8, establish town gifts and gifts of homes in lieu of taxes and income annuities. The concept behind this was that there were people in town who may not have any family, who may want to leave their, and I'm not sure of the legality of this. Some of these recommendations I'm making, I have not fully developed. I'm just making these recommendations so we can talk about it. But it's good to talk about it than not to talk about it. And the idea of having families give their home to the town in return for an income annuity, like you see many charities doing that. I am not sure of the legality of it, but it could be an interesting idea to raise some revenue for the town.
It's legal.
Is it legal?
It's legal to give to the town.
Okay, that would be a terrific idea. Please, I'll finish and then I'll open comment, and I appreciate that. Cell towers, windmills. 10, declare the town movie and TV friendly. And I think that's something that could really be helpful for the town as well. Sell water and ice from Farm Pond. Now, I heard that happened in the 19th century, actually, that we sold water and ice from the Farm Pond. Again, ideas. Number 12, encourage farming and dairy in towns. Cows and cooperatives. What we need in this town is that we need to establish some type of farm bureau, a farm committee. There's a lot of horse people in this town. There's a lot of farmers in this town. Their voices are not being heard in this town. And it's time that their voices be heard. It's time that that we recognize that we have a very unique town. It's time to put that uniqueness to work for us. Putting a committee together that's supported by the Board of Selectmen in the town itself will go a long way to help solidify our community. Number 13, auction off any unused or unutilized construction town-owned equipment. For example, I mentioned the ballot boxes. If we're getting new ballot boxes, the idea is that we're going to sell off equipment we don't need and put it maybe in the town store. Number 14, allow the leasing of town land, conservation land, to existing homeowners if space is needed for septic and well. For example, if you have a home, and you want to build another bedroom, or you want to fix something up and your old well needs to be replaced, and you don't have any land to do it, if there's town land that you can lease for us, they will pay for the town land. Again, this is an idea. Number 15, freeze all hiring on town departments until efficiency studies are complete. We need to bring in an efficiency expert to see whether or not we're getting the maximum amount of return for our money. Number 16, rent out town fields and land when not in use. We have sports fields, we have land, let's see if we can rent it out. We also have a lot of unencumbered land in town that we can sell, sometimes, or trade. Again, when we're looking at the downtown area, those 6 acres, that may or may not be owned by town itself, maybe owned by town forest or someone else. We can trade land. The idea being is that we do have something to trade and we do have assets. The last section is the most interesting section. Because what I did on this section is I spoke to 80 different people in town, over 80 different people. Many of them I didn't know. And this is all about governance in this town. And I'm so happy to hear about the honor of the town and the opinion of people in the legislature. And it was interesting talking to people and their perceptions and how a small group is controlling the whole town. That's an unforgivable, I don't say unforgivable, that's a sad, because that's not necessarily true. What's happened here is that there seems to be a lack of transparency, and people seem to sense that lack of transparency. And one of the biggest complaints of most of the people I spoke to was the perceived conflict of interest on town boards. And that seems to be the #1 complaint of most of the residents I've spoken to, was the perceived conflict of interest. There are people on these boards who are in a position of power who may have a perceived conflict of interest. And my recommendation, if there's a resident who is petitioning that board, that resident should have the ability to remove one person of that board if they see a perceived conflict of interest. If there is a greater perceived conflict of interest of 2 or more people on that board or committee, then that person needs 10 other residents to remove that person from the voting. I think this will open up the governance. I think this will open up the transparency in this community. And I think that's debate that should be opened up for the citizens of this town. The other major complaint that we had was that taxpayer-supported groups should not interfere in town politics. This was a major complaint. And I, as a resident, do not like having my tax dollars go into committees that are taxpayer that I'm paying for, and having a political agenda. That is a major complaint amongst many, many people. We spent a lot of time on the phones on Wednesday when we had to get people to come to the Thursday meeting. And that was the #1 reason what brought them there for town meeting. So taxpayer-supported groups should stick to what their mandate is and not politics. Third, we need to look towards refinancing the existing debt. I am not sure whether or not, what our rates are. I haven't looked at it myself. I mentioned before the efficiencies, and the last but not least is to have the town benefits comparable to other communities and businesses. So gentlemen, residents of the town, I'm here today just because I'm trying to throw these ideas out. It's time for discussion, it's time for debate. If you're looking to try to help the town, the time is now. Some of these ideas are good ideas, some of them are terrible ideas. I personally hate to pay to throw garbage. I hate going down a 300-foot driveway to throw something out, but it's time for us to discuss it. It's time, when you put things in committees, they die in committees. So I would like to thank the Selectmen for the time, and I'd also like to thank David for, bear with me the last 10 minutes before I got here and finished up this for you, and thank you for your time, too. So I said, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for coming in.
Just a comment that this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I welcome, I think the board welcomes people who are citizens of the town having ideas and willing to put in time and effort to try and make the community better. So I know that you have lots of things, other things that you could be doing with your life. And the fact that you took the time to come up with all of these ideas and to give up an evening and come here, that's appreciated and welcomed. And I know that some of them have been worked on by different boards and committees in town and are continuing to be looked at. the pay to throw for garbage, for example, that was an item that the recycling committee brought forward one year, and then they withdrew it, and then they wanted to think it over some more, and then they were doing some work with DEP and so on. So different minds in different locations are actually talking about some of the same things that you mentioned here. So I for one, thank you, and would say to everybody listening tonight to this that anybody's welcome to come forward with ideas. That's where change occurs. Someone once said that change starts with one person. And somebody with a good idea and willing to speak on it and come forward. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, one of the beauties one of the benefits of being at this table, whether there's 3 or 5 of us, is you get to know people. And I've gotten to know Harley over the last few months, and I've really come to like him, and he's certainly passionate and full of ideas. And there were a whole bunch of good ones here, so I'm glad you're right, you got to talk about them. Sometimes you got to throw stuff on the wall, up on the wall, see what sticks. But also, there's no time like the present to go down a road, a path, if the path looks like it's going to be interesting, and you've got a bunch of good ones here. So and I suspect you won't let us put this in a drawer and forget about it. So that's going to be all sorts of fun.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you as well. These ideas don't really help until they get turned into action, at least some of them, and I know part of your process is to winnow down and select ones that have the most likelihood of happening and build support for those. To that end, just to make people aware, right now going on in the police station is a meeting of the Water Study Committee, which is looking, working in kind of parallel with the way you're thinking to try to figure out what could be done possibly to help jumpstart some development in the center of town, and bringing water to the center of town would be a way to help do that. There may be funding at the state level available for water or sewer systems. We're also working on trying to figure out how to qualify for that. So there's lots of things happening that are towards the ends that you're putting forward here today in terms of lower tax rate, higher tax base, trying to get something more of a downtown, in the downtown area, and to get some housing in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harley.
Katie?
There were a lot of ideas thrown out with Harley's list of things. Would that be available on your website so we could see them in writing?
Sure. I think so.
If Harley is agreeable?
Yeah, he ran out of here, so I think he thinks it's a hostile crowd.
I'd be glad
Oh, there
to
he
get
is.
copies. It's a public document.
Okay, so if you put it on your website,
This is public record.
that would be great.
that, right?
Yeah, I have copies here if you...
Just have it as a residence brainstorming or something like that.
Yeah. That's good. We can put it on the website.
Got one back there.
Oh, yes, Carol.
When I called point of order at the beginning of Harley's presentation, what I wanted to say, as you recognized me, is that this is exactly the kind of document that ought to be available to the public before we listen to it, because for many of us who are visual learners, it's much easier to follow a presentation like that if we've got it in front of us. So if you might consider that for future meetings. And some of those ideas that were just presented have a lot of merit, and I hope the town will pursue them. Some of the ideas, a quick check of Massachusetts general laws will show we can't do those things. But I applaud you for bringing them forward.
Even if you can't do them, though, you can petition the legislature to change the law, I've heard. So you might be able to get that done.
How do you do that?
So Carol, by way of explanation, we are dealing with volunteers, including, folks who are doing other things with their lives. David was trying to get information from Harley all week. He was busy. Harley, probably David too, but that information came in, what, 4:30, 5 o'clock today?
That was 10 minutes before the meeting.
10 minutes before the meeting. So we didn't have copies or anything of that. I got it when we sat down at the table.
Yeah.
Susan?
Yeah, just trying on what Ms. Marple just said as far as having documents ahead of time. There are numerous towns, if you go on their website to the Selectmen's office, that packet, they have the Selectmen's packet, what you all have in front of you that you are reading, it's available to the public before this meeting so that we all know what you're talking about. When you're reading letters, we have it.
That's the goal. That's
Well,
absolutely the goal.
Well, there's a goal to start working. Holly's got some decent things that are worth reaching for. There's another one for the Selectmen along with the policy for the public comment. Thank you.
Sean?
I'll just point out, I've been trying to get a seat at that table for a month, and
Okay.
Harley took my spot. Thanks.
I think we have Medfield Selectmen here. Very good. Sorry, we're a little bit...
Doesn't happen in Medfield, does it?
So what, we're ready for...
Yeah, we were contacted by Selectman DeSorga to come in and talk about regionalization, and we talked to the Selectman about scheduling him, and I think you contacted us a couple of months ago, so we were just getting you in. So
Yeah, go ahead.
he was really going to drive the discussion on whatever he wanted to present, and from what I understand, he's approached several communities about appearing to discuss these
This is a
matters.
great idea, just to have you in here, and thank you for coming in. I think it's great to have to have the chance to get to know selectmen from the surrounding towns, and I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks. I thought originally to try to get all the selectmen from the surrounding towns together with the schedules we all have as selectmen. That's impossible. So I figured it'd be easy for me to go to each of the surrounding towns. Let me just start by saying New England, as you know, is unique with its strong town identity, its strong individual town government system, unlike the county system that they have in basically the rest of the country. Many say that the county system is more economical than the way we do things here in New England, but it's the system we have. It's our tradition, and while maybe it's not the most economical, it does have many quality of life factors that makes it special here, which is why we like that.
Could we just keep it down? It's hard to hear. Thank you. Sorry.
That's fine. Our system is here. It's not going to go away. Medfield, like most towns, is faced with budget and tax issues, which I just heard a little bit here as well. As a selectman, I've tried hard to try to find ways and to act in a way that preserves the quality of life in the town, yet doesn't raise taxes to the extent that we're driving people out of the community. So what am I talking about? Why am I here? In an attempt to merge the best of the county system that most of the country is under with the township system that we have here in New England, I'm proposing we form a multi-town committee made up of 5 to 7 communities that are in the Medfield area that include Sherborn. For lack of a better name, I'm calling it Informational Service and Equipment Sharing Committee. I'm sure we can come up with something better. Rather than work as a community locked in our own separate bubbles, we should be able to share information. Perhaps there are ways something that one community does something that's better than the way we do it. Why invent the wheel? Excuse me, sorry.
That's one of your other communities.
Why invent the wheel when you can learn from a neighboring community? Perhaps it's a way to make the permit process go quicker and make it easier for businesses to locate in the community. Perhaps it's a way of collecting unpaid dog fees, which we're having a hard time with in Medfield. Whatever it is, the idea of the committee would be to look at the bylaws, the process, ways of doing things, and share that information with the other communities. The second thing is services. Perhaps there are ways we can share services, be it a part-time veteran agent, or the tree warden, or the sealer of weights and measures, or the animal control officer, or any other part-time position. I fully realize the turf mentality we all have in our own individual communities. But perhaps a couple of towns can join together, share a service that would save money, give the community greater efficiency with a full-time position, where now there's perhaps only a part-time position. a professional person where perhaps now there is a non-professional person. The third is equipment. Could we save money by sharing some of our equipment? Perhaps we can't. But the effort of the committee would be to see if there's anything like this possible. One never knows until one tries and actually looks at that possibility. I'm suggesting that each town appoint a town resident or member to this inter-town committee that would meet on a regular basis and come back with recommendations of what is possible, what is not possible. Nothing would be binding. Perhaps they would add or subtract to any of the ideas that I had. I went to the first time to the Mass Municipal Association convention in Boston, and just the fact I got to sit down with a number of other selectmen from other communities and just to bounce ideas off, hear what they're doing in those other communities, I just thought was great. So as a follow-up to this, I'd like to propose that once a year, maybe twice a year, we get all the selectmen from these 5 to 7 towns together, just in a social setting, like the Mass Municipal, and just bounce some ideas off each other. What are you doing in Sherborn? What are we doing in Medfield? What are they doing in Dover? What are they doing in Millis? What are they doing in Medway? And maybe we could follow up and maybe once a year have a second meeting, maybe bring in some of our state representatives or senators. Some we share, others we do not. And it'd be nice to get them together and give us a little clout of the issues that in this area, what I call kind of the Tri-Valley area of the, the Charles River, the Blackstone, the Neponset, this area, what are the needs that we face here in our communities? My goal would be to have the committee be appointed and have the first meeting by the summer, and then actually hopefully get going come fall. So I'm here before this honorable board to see if it was something that Sherborn sees value in and something that would be good for Sherborn, and so would be willing to appoint a member to serve on this committee. Now, so far, I have been to the boards of selectmen in Millis, Medway, and Walpole, and have been enthusiastically given support. All 3 of those boards will appoint a member. I'm here tonight in Sherborn. Next week, I'm in Westwood, and then I'm scheduled to go to Dover and Norfolk. So the 5 to 7 towns that I'm talking about, basically I had Medfield as the epic center, and then I just went right around. We share many of the same towns. Maybe down the road, we could expand that to other communities that border some of the towns that Medfield does not border. So my basic thing is to try to see if there's ways we can, share information, share equipment, and to share services to make it economically a benefit for all the communities, and get together as selectmen, get out of our bubbles and kind of pick each other's brain and hear a little bit of what goes on in each of the different communities. So that's the reason I'm here this evening.
Can I,
Go ahead.
wonderful. 100% in favor of collaborating with our neighbors and finding ways to save money. This has been a policy position of the current administration in the State House to encourage regionalization. They are looking for ways to encourage regionalization. It not only complies with what the state wants us to do, it also has the potential of saving money for our taxpayers, and it has the potential advantage of improving service. So that may very well be a piece of equipment that's too expensive for one community to buy by itself and is used infrequently, but with 5 or 7 communities pooling the cost of that equipment and making it available to all 5 or 7 or 3, or whatever you end up with, you get the use of the equipment, but at a fraction of the cost. Right now, for example, we've just invested in a $900,000 fire truck. If that fire truck was of use to 3 communities, or 4 or 5 communities, the costs of the taxpayers would have been reduced proportionally, and if it was available, if there was a way that we could make it available for everybody, and so we had it when we needed it, and everybody had it when they needed it, we're all better off. So I'm in support of this creation of this committee. I was trying to think of what the an acronym was. Is it ISIC? Is it, what's the...
It would actually be ISESC, however you want to pronounce that. We could probably come up with something better. I wasn't real creative with
We
that.
need like a snappier...
Yeah, we can come up with something that sounds a little better.
But excellent idea. So if my colleagues would agree, I would very much want to see us become part of this.
I think it's something we should put on an agenda for our next meeting. I think we need public input on that, but I do have a feeling that it's a good idea. There are a couple of questions I had for you in particular. One was about recreation fields, and I was asked to ask this question of you. I understand Medfield has got some plans for the state hospital site, including some recreational fields, and I had heard that there might be some thought of trying to do that on a consortium basis with other towns. Do you have any more information on that?
And that's, and just in sharing information, I think things like that would be key. Something that's going to be major happening in a community that borders another community, such as Medfield State Hospital. Right now, the town of Medfield, through both town meeting and election, has voted to purchase 139 acres of the hospital land at $3.1 million. That's before the state legislature right now. We don't see any opposition to that. We just got to get through by July 31st. We're in the process now of appointing a development committee that will then look at what exactly will go up at the former state hospital site. We've had several open vision sessions to try to get ideas from the public as to what will go up there. Fields were mentioned, recreational fields were mentioned, over 55 housing, retail, a number of other things were mentioned. So all of that is on the table. We wouldn't take possession of the property until January. This committee that we're forming right now will begin to work on that and then come back with a finite plan. We're developing a master plan that will include all things dealing with recreation that the hospital will be part of. So that certainly is on the table. There's nothing definite that's out there as of right now. We're still in that planning and working stage. But that is being discussed.
That's great. Peter, you have any?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you're here, really, it's great. I think what you're talking about makes a lot of sense. I support, I think you know, earlier when the resident was talking about a bunch of ideas here earlier, I said, you know, sometimes you got to throw things up on the wall and see what sticks. So, you know, I think you got to explore everything from joint purchasing of paper clips to merging towns and everything in between, you know, or have to go on the table and be evaluated. But one question I have is the nature of the representative from each town. Is there, you know, is it a town administrator or is it someone so that you kind of have all equals at the table, if you will?
There's a lot. In talking to the different towns I've been to so far, on 2 of the towns, the individual Board of Selectmen wanted to be on it. I think that should be up to you as a board. You know what is best to decide. Do you want to have a town resident? Do you want to have a member of the board? There's pros and cons. If you have, you know, a town official, they know the town. Mm-hmm. If you have a town resident, maybe they have, you know, new, fresh ideas or something, you know, and maybe they have the time to serve. You guys, I'm sure like all other selectmen, your schedules are full to the brim. So I think that's up to you as a board. 2 of the towns, as I said, will be a selectman, and the other town was going to appoint a town resident. So, but I think that you guys know best for Sherborn And what I would hope is that if we get the committee together by the summer, that the first agenda be just to set an agenda. What is that agenda going to be? And then come summer, when everybody comes back, and now you have an agenda, begin to actually take a look at that. I think it's going to be hard setting the agenda.
Is there any MAPC or any other staff that would be appropriate to help this committee out?
Well, I think Mass Municipal has some different areas with the regional planning. There's several regional planning committees that I think we could tap into for some professional advice with that. That may be one of the first things maybe the committee would want to look at, because we do have some different state agencies that deal with regionalization that are encouraging that, and why not tap into their professional, their professional personnel. So I think
when you
that,
go into these other towns, you mentioned Westwood and Dover and Norfolk, are you going into them soon, or? How?
yes, next week I'm in Westwood, and then I'm following with Dover and Norfolk.
So we got some, I guess, questions from the public, if that's okay, or,
Yeah.
Chief?
Yeah, I just actually, I don't really have a question, just had a comment to make. As the board is aware, David is aware, the gentleman mentioned regionalizing animal control. And there's some operational issues with that. The gentleman mentioned different towns that are in a separate county. He's talking about all Norfolk County towns. And the communities that we've been working with, or I've been working with, the Middlesex County communities. So I just want to make that point. Clearly, the board knows that I'm certainly not afraid of any regionalization. I'm the one that brought the idea of regionalizing dispatch and lockup. So it's definitely a conversation to have. I'm just hoping the board and David allow the department heads to have some input from our standpoint.
Thank you. Gino, you had something?
Yes, well, since you mentioned MAPC, they do have a program called District Local Technical Assistance Program, and one of the priorities of that is to look at regionalization issues. And the applications, it's a very simple application process, like 1 or 2 pages, and those are usually due around January, so it sounds like just about in time when the committee meets a few times in the fall, if you come up with a specific idea, that's one possible source of funding, at least, or professional staff help that you might be able to get.
I think just, I wasn't looking, I was looking to start small. I wasn't looking to deal with schools, police, fire in the beginning. I'm more looking at, in a smaller way, that there's so many different other avenues and just sharing ideas. And you guys in Middlesex County, most of the other towns would be Norfolk, but
We actually got one of those grants. David can,
It was $10,000 from
The fire
MAPC
department.
for the alternative delivery of fire services. It's proceedings on.
Is we currently participate in the MAPC bidding process, where we get together with 6 other cities and towns and share the costs of the bidding process, where one bid will go out and the bid results are available to all the cities and towns. We also share with a couple pieces of equipment. It's on a much broader scale, like our soil sifter or a stump grinder. The problem with that is when we bring in too many cities and towns that we don't have access to the machine we actually need. But we would definitely be open to scaling down to 2 or 3 cities and towns for pieces of equipment like that, if that would work much better.
Great. Good, thank
so
you.
let's put this on a future agenda.
Yeah, if we could put this on maybe our next agenda or a later agenda to talk about it, but I understand you want to kind of get this kicked off in the next month or so.
I'd like to, I still have 3 other boards to go before, so realistically, I'm not going to be able to finish till the end of June. And then I figure if we get at least something, one meeting in the summer, then many people go away, and we come back fresh in the fall, more enthusiastic, and hopefully get underway.
Mm-hmm.
This is a no-brainer because there's nothing to lose here.
We should be good at it then.
And it should be, there's only an upside here.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this, and I think the logistical issues and so forth, they get worked out in the process, yeah.
It's great. Thank you. Thanks so much
To
for
be
coming.
afraid of.
So what we'll do is we'll contact you probably by the end of the month and just see if we can get, if you have an individual to serve on that, see if we can get them together at least once in the summer, and then hopefully get underway in the fall.
Great.
Great.
I appreciate your time. I know you guys are busy
Thank
with
you.
your
And you have a
agendas.
great website, I checked it out. You're
thanks.
communicating well.
Thank you.
Okay. David, we've got the town administrator report. We're almost caught up on time.
Yeah, jeez.
See how I did this?
Did pretty good.
Within like 7 minutes.
No.
This is, the first thing we were going to look at was annual staff appointments.
Yes.
And these are basically routine. I've got an updated sheet for you that...
Oh, do you?
Oh,
Thank
good.
you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You want me to go ahead and just read through these?
Well, can I just
Sure.
make the motion?
Well, it's just, I'm going to see what the revised one says here.
Basically, the version I had given you before had the deputy wiring inspector incorrect.
Okay, and this lists all the officers and everybody?
Right.
Okay.
It lists the roles of the police chief and also his role as keeper of the lockup. And I can read down through the names
Yeah,
and the
I think
positions.
you should, yeah.
Yeah.
But why not just make the motion so we don't have to read it twice?
Who's going to read it? We're going to make a motion, and then we're going to vote it? Is that what you're saying?
So I'm prepared to read what he prepared.
Oh, okay.
because it's in
So
the
that,
form
yeah,
of-
that's fine. Do it.
Of a motion.
Excellent. Excellent idea.
I move that the following people be appointed to the following positions for a term of 1 year, expiring on June 15, 2015. Walter Avalon, Building Inspector. Michael
Jim Petro.
Petro,
Yep.
Building Inspector Backup. Rick Aston, Oil Burner Inspector Backup. Ray Grenier, Plumbing and Gas Inspector. Thomas Fresca, Deputy Plumbing and Gas Inspector. Douglas Brody, Veterans Agent, Burial Officer, and Grave Officer. Richard Bemis, Wiring Inspector, and Ralph Deddy, Deputy Wiring Inspector.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
I move that the following be appointed to the position for an indefinite term. Fire Chief Timothy Morrissey, Oil Burner Inspector.
Second.
My second.
Okay.
Oh, you can.
All in favor? Okay. We just can't wait to get you to be the oil burner inspector.
I also might add, I had that as indefinite because it's in his contract that the fire chief will serve in that position,
Okay.
so,
And that way we can carry it over?
yeah.
Okay.
I move that the following people be appointed to the following positions for a term of 2 years, expiring June 15, 2016. Richard R. Thompson, III, Chief of Police and Keeper of the Lockup. David T. Bento, Police Lieutenant. Luke Tedstone, Police Sergeant. Do I go down or across?
I'd go across, because you're going to be
Okay.
sergeant.
David Nolte, Police Sergeant. James Gaudino, Police Detective. John Coffey, Police Officer. Richard Crossan, Police Officer. Brian D'Amico, Police Officer. James Graziano, Police Officer. Stephen Laquadera, Police Officer. Mark Scola, Police Officer. Chad Smith, Police Officer. Paul Van Vliet, Police Officer. Roxanne Buckler, Police Matron. Evelyn Corbett, Police Matron.
Second.
If I murdered anybody's name, I apologize.
David?
I just wanted to say that in the past, the selectmen have done this every year, and we're trying to line it up so that we
Contract.
can go with the term of the contract. So next time we do it, we'll do it for 3 years,
Good
which will be
thing.
the term of the contract, so
Thank
you won't
you.
have to do it. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. All in favor? Okay, another 3-0 vote.
There we go.
We're cooking. Okay, meeting calendar, I guess, David, right?
Yeah, this was something proposed, if you can take it with you and comment on it, or however you'd like to handle it. I have an updated one that's more, has additional information added to it.
Okay.
If you want to just,
We should set our next meeting.
right.
This
If you
is
just want to
updated.
talk about
There's updated.
the next meeting and return with any edits to the calendar, or...
Okay, so,
Yep.
check my appointments here.
There's just one typo.
The next meeting will be when?
Basically,
Well, I would think it'd be June 19th if everybody's
Yes.
acceptable to that.
There's-
Next
Except it says skip on here.
that's my new one that I
Oh,
get
'cause
sent
we have
out,
the warrant,
is we don't have anything on that agenda that has to be then, and there's no warrant. Unless you want to just go ahead and meet the 19th and 26th.
Well, one of the things that we do towards the end of the fiscal year is that under Chapter 77 of the Acts of maybe 2005, we're authorized to transfer money between accounts in order to bring things to balance to close out the year. And that, whatever votes we take have to be concurred in with the advisory. So we need to tee up whatever transfers need to be made to fund those things, and
Yeah.
rather not do it in July, rather do it in June.
Yeah. I
So
kn-
when
We should
do-
meet next Thursday and have at least a short meeting next Thursday.
Yeah,
Talk
that's-
about those kinds of things.
Yeah, I noted on here for the 26th at the latest, the reserve transfers, encumbrance, and whatever appointments are left. But that can easily be the
I think
19th.
the 19th makes more
Yeah.
sense. So let's plan to have a meeting on the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can put on, well, we could probably even put on the question that we just talked with the Medfield Selectmen about, the idea of a
Okay. Right.
board.
When, David, do we expect that you will be able to sign warrants?
It has to go through the
The
legislature.
legislature has to
Legislature?
send it back.
So we have no sense of that timing.
Yeah, that's a couple of months.
Okay.
Well, I can give you a sense of it just from having worked for 3 speakers of the House. The legislature is adjourning formal sessions July 31st, which is 6 weeks, 7 weeks from now. And you had to have all committee reports issued back by the end of May for any bills to be considered. Anything that we file now is probably going to be treated for filings, which have to be done by December, for the new legislature that will be starting next year, unless there are ways to suspend all the rules. I mean, you have to organize the Speaker and the Senate President to agree to suspend all the rules and take a bill from the town of Sherborn. But absent that, this would get filed as one of those bills before the first week in December for the next session, then goes through all the committee process, and somewhere around May of
Next year.
2015, it will be reported out and be on track to be heard.
The warrant signing piece was submitted a few weeks ago, so I don't know if that would have been, that
Caught
would
in
have
this
made it
shorter
in.
period,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's probably too late this.
According to Representative Linsky today, I believe he said both of the warrants articles had been filed as legislation already.
Okay.
Yeah, but
They won't have been
Filing
heard
it.
through committee, I know.
I mean,
So would that even include, that timing, Paul, include the 3 to 5 selectmen?
yes, I mean, whether or not it's been submitted, basically the legislature's on the glide path into
Election season.
to adjournment.
Yes.
And there's a lot of things that need to be done. There's quite a backup of things that they're working on.
So whatever the town clerk did in this petition we've painfully done tonight, will not likely get dealt with until
The next
sometime
session.
in the next calendar year. Is that, if I'm understanding what you're saying?
Yes, probably. I'd project like May of next year.
Wow.
Absent, but there are ways to, as I say,
Because
suspend the
then, once
rules.
they come back, then, if I recall the wording of that article, it then goes to town meeting again for acceptance by the voters of that approval.
I'm not sure that's in the warrant.
That was in the warrant.
That was in the warrant. And then 60 days after that, no sooner than 60 days after that acceptance at town meeting, can the election of 5 people take place, assuming that's accepted.
Yeah, the town meeting vote, whether it's special town meeting or the annual town meeting, would
Yes.
have to occur at least 60 days
Before the election.
before the election, the town election.
Yeah.
So the town election is pretty much usually set around the same time period.
That's correct.
So
Which is not 60 days after town meeting, so it's a 2 years out. type.
it'd be really tight if that good.
Okay. So that's on the same, similar time frame as the legislature, perhaps.
Yeah. The
So-
the changes to the job description just need to be approved by the Attorney General, and those come
Right.
back. But that's,
That'll be August.
yeah, she had
Yeah.
90 days to approve that.
We're getting off schedule.
All right, sorry. So
Okay.
basically, it's every other week until we start getting into budget and
I tried to put over,
Article
I tried to make it
and so forth.
every other week, tried to squeeze in 3 a month.
So should we do town
Gotcha.
council appointment next week too, David?
I have that, yeah, we can do that.
I think so. Okay.
So are we on that?
Next
Do
week.
we evaluate anybody else? I mean, we're here with the same council for I don't know how many years. I don't know what the board's typically done, but in something like that, do you consider evaluating others?
Well, last year, they committed to holding the rate for the next
Yeah.
contract. It wasn't a 2-year contract, it was just a 1-year contract.
rate.
But the new rate has been left flat. So you'd have to decide, do you want to do an RFP process and let, some sort of process take place of reviewing them? But I would say it's tough at this point, but if you wanted to do it for next year, you could start that process mid-year. I think it's a long, I don't know how long it took the last time the town switched councils, but it's
And
usually a
not
much longer
necessarily suggesting
process.
switching, it's just that
Well, they have a right
it's
to
healthy
bid,
to
yeah.
evaluate alternatives.
I think continuity is so important on that, just having somebody get to know your town. I just remember when we had Norm Cohen for a million years, and he really knew the town, and he showed up every year at town meeting, and
Well, the institutional knowledge is, really.
Paul, you've
I
been
understand
town
that. Yeah.
council to some towns for many years, and I'm sure you feel like you know those towns very well. It's helpful, I think, to have somebody who's got at least some tenure.
But here,
Not that I wouldn't think about somebody else, but
on the issue of this contract, if you recall, I voted no on the contract because I didn't agree with the rate increase. I thought it was above market, and you two all decided you were going to
We
give
steamrolled you, Paul.
the,
to be a 5-person board, Paul might have come out on top with that.
I might have come out on top of the 5-person board, but I thought the contract was too
I remember that, I remember that.
too
yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
So this contract is
Still too expensive,
It's
perhaps
it's
from
still,
your perspective.
yes, too expensive from my perspective.
Uh-huh.
I would just say you get what you pay for.
What are you talking about? Because I can't figure out what you're talking about.
The question was whether we go out to bid for town council or not. We're going to put this on an agenda. We're talking about agenda items for the next meeting. We're going to put this on an agenda for the next meeting.
That's not on this agenda.
It's not on this agenda.
We're talking about, yeah,
Okay.
appointing town council in the next agenda.
Yeah, we're getting some history here in terms of how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
I got lost along the way.
It's okay.
All right, well, I think, so I get it. It's, like, I'm cool with having it on the agenda next time. I think it's something to consider in the next cycle
Okay.
with a little more effort. Upfront.
Okay.
All
So do
right.
we go to, Selectmen reports?
I have nothing except I did give the graduation speech.
How long was the standing ovation?
There was no
15
standing
minutes?
ovation. I was up on the stage with Jim Dolly from Dover. I had never met him before. We hit it off. He's a good guy. I used a metaphor where I talked about, you're going to, you're hearing the words congratulations and pride a lot tonight. I said, I'm going to give you another word, and that word is Ferrari. I said, you're all Ferraris, you're, state of the art, you're ready to go down the road of life, blah, 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 and I gave a whole bunch of stuff. And once I gave that word out that I said, you're all Ferraris, I said, well, when you come back to your 25th reunion, you're going to remember back to that cool, handsome dude from Sherborn. A lot of people laughed about that, and Mr. Dolly is like, cool, handsome dude, what are you talking about? That was the only comment he had about my speech, yeah. But anyway, it was 146 students graduating, and there was a great crop of students coming out of Dover Sherborn High. I think everybody should feel good about the accomplishments to get to graduation, all the teachers that were part of their lives, all the people that have been, their families and coaches and all that is who I tried to recognize in my speech. And
It was a rainy day, so it was inside.
it was inside,
the
but it was
gymnasium.
comfortable, yeah. And good administration, I think they're very pleased. So our 70% of our budget, our tax dollars that go to push these kids through the system are well spent, because I think it was mission accomplished, as they say.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it.
You got any reports? Okay, I was just going to report on two things that I had the chance to do this past week. One was to go to the annual meeting of the Sherborn Community Center Foundation and collect revenue for the town. They paid their $1 rent.
Did you turn it over?
I
Yes,
turned
you
it
did.
over, and it was
Just checking.
It was a crumpled dollar bill that they gave me.
They
But
gave you cash.
they said that this year expenditures exceeded revenues. So even though they have a trust fund that they've accumulated over the years, this past year was not a flush year, and I only got an old dollar for the town. So that's what I got. The other thing I did last Friday was Council on Aging had me come to their breakfast. That was a great discussion. There were a lot of really good ideas ranging from real estate development and town revenues all the way to an extended discussion of the beaver problem in town and how we might solve it. To that end, I did a little research in follow-up and did find a couple of towns that have bylaws specifically addressing beavers and directing various town boards on the policy approach they should take to beavers. So I'm going to share those with the town administrator. Maybe we can get something on the warrant if people are interested to address the beaver situation, because it's there were a lot of comments. It's apparently affecting a lot of people in the town of Sherborn, not just public land, but private property as well.
That does remind me of an issue under Selectmen reports when you're all done. There's a state law that says that no one can operate a kennel without a license from the town. And a number of citizens have been complaining that there's a kennel operation in the town. And when I've asked the town administrator what is Sherborn doing about enforcing the law, he pointed out that there's nothing in our bylaws that implements the state law. It may well be that we don't need anything in our bylaws to implement the state law, because maybe the state law just should be obeyed. On the other hand, there may need to be some local bylaws to regulate what the state has defined as a local licensing issue. I believe in the absence of anybody designated as a licensing authority, it would be the Board of Selectmen until we do a warrant article asking for some other board to do it. Maybe the Board of Health maybe should do it, maybe the Planning Board should do it, absent designating somebody to do it, it would be our job to do it. And I don't recall our issuing any kennel license to anybody, and yet there's a kennel, what looks like a kennel operation going on in the town. So then the question also is, absent a local bylaw, who's supposed to enforce it? And if the selectmen are the licensing authority, I had suggested to the town administrator that maybe he was the enforcing authority, and he kind of ran for the hills on that one. He's got a lot on his plate.
I'm saying
So-
it wouldn't hold up, that's what I'm saying, unless there was something local.
So I think I would like to ask town council what the community should be doing about unlicensed kennels in the town. Should we be adopting a local bylaw? Is that something we should go to town meeting on? Do we need to go to town meeting? Is state law enough? How do we want to enforce it? All those issues.
Peter, you have some input on dogs?
Two doggy daycare centers came through, well, actually, they're going to the ZBA, but they came through the Board of Health because everything going to the ZBA comes through other committees, and the Board of Health sent comments back to the ZBA about their hearings for the doggy daycare centers. Now, they're supposedly doggy daycare centers. Our only concern, which we sent to the ZBA, was for the handling of, the sanitary handling of waste and byproducts. But the fact is, they are two petitions to the ZBA being heard by the ZBA.
Well, those are zoning issues. I'm talking about licensing issues.
I understand, but my point is that you do have an opening here in the ZBA for public participation and comment and so forth to be heard on those operations. All right, and if the zone, I think, if they are approved by zoning, you then obviously have, the consideration of a kennel issue, but right now, they're only at the ZBA stage.
Somebody could direct me maybe to the law. It might be possible that the animal control officer could have some authority with that.
It just says a local authority.
That's all it says?
Yeah, my familiarity with kennel licensing is it's typically the licensing board, which is typically the Board of Selectmen in most places. And it's a separate trade license. It's not the zoning special permit. That's often separate. And sometimes then there are noise regulations that deal with barking animals and the hours of, which an animal's allowed to bark above, outside and that kind of stuff.
Objectionable noise.
Yeah, so they can regulate them in multiple ways.
So in what way could you deny a kennel license?
Well, if it was creating a nuisance or,
Okay.
not in conformance to
But that's the
dog
zoning.
safety and
Oh, I see.
so forth.
Right.
Well, I mean, nuisance to
Yeah.
the neighbors or otherwise. It's really a
Right,
kind of a
right.
redundant, it's the same way the selectmen license used car sales or whatever it is. We've got zoning and we've got
Right.
licensing authority over
Same
those.
thing with alcohol. Before someone can open a alcohol place, they have to get all kinds of zoning permits from.
So alcohol, dogs, and used cars, it sounds like a country and western song.
It's getting better, yeah.
Just need the banjo.
So
Well, what I'm suggesting is the whole subject matter needs a little more clarity, a little more definition. We need to figure out what our roles are, and this being brought to my attention by citizens suggests that there's a gap here, either what we're doing or in our legal structure, to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
The building inspector believed he had the authority to tell them not to operate.
He certainly has the authority under the nuisance bylaw, as we know from the lighting bylaw at this year's town meeting, is an overall nuisance bylaw, and the building inspector is the enforcement authority on that.
But he didn't want to create a liability for the town if he believed that they were going to get approval through the ZBA, that it would be, they could come back on the town for all that time that they had been closed, looking for remuneration from the town for wrongly shutting them down. So that is what his concern was.
Not if they need a zoning permit and they don't have one. It wouldn't be wrongfully, but that's just called zoning enforcement. But, this raises a larger issue. I guess I agree that it would be helpful to get town council's
Yeah,
input.
I'm going to.
But just from a policy standpoint, rather than, we keep shooting flies when they land on us, but, one thing maybe to add to the list, David, is are there different regulatory issues that as a town we should be concerned with that we need authority to adopt? Are there other things that we should be thinking about building into a warrant article where we, have the opportunity to protect the citizens from particular issues, but we haven't adopted the enabling authority to do that? And if that's the case, maybe we ought to take care of all that. And I mean, comparing us to other towns might give an answer to some of that. I'm sure many other towns have bylaws on kennels. Elliot?
I'm opposed to any dog kennels in the town of Sherborn.
Thank you.
I have lived next to dogs many years ago. People rented next door to me, and they had dogs under the barn next door to me. And no one should have to put up with neighbors barking dogs, and any dog in a kennel is probably going to bark. If you don't believe it, just go around where there are some kennels, and there they are.
I believe dogs will bark. I
So,
don't have to look for that.
No one in Sherborn should have to put up with barking dogs, so the kennel should just be a no-no, period, and don't even allow the problem to start, because it will. And years ago, they raised foxhounds where the Sherborn Inn is now, and when the old steam whistles would go by on the trains, these 10 foxhounds, you think there were coyotes over there barking. And also where Paul Insurance is now, a man there had greyhounds that he raised. And so I've been in the middle of dog kennels, and no one in Sherborn should have to live next to a dog kennel. Fortunately, these kennels that are going to be, I believe tomorrow night is the zoning board hearing on 2 of these kennels, and fortunately, none of them are near me, but I wouldn't wish them on anyone.
Well, if the town could help me get my dogs to stop barking, that would be great, too.
You kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Have the medicinal marijuana dispensary next to the kennel.
There
The
you go.
dogs eat the marijuana, and you'd be all set, no barking.
A kennel is 4 or more dogs.
That's our police chief for the folks who can't see on the closed circuit television.
Yeah.
That was not a selectman suggestion. Okay.
Gee whiz.
Do we have a,
Chief John.
do we have the executive session vote? We should probably go into,
Yes.
I think.
The package, here. Try that?
Oh, we got one.
Yeah.
It was in the packet.
It was in the packet? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't get this part of the packet. Interesting. I move that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to non-union contract negotiations under Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, Treasurer. And I so declare that having this discussion in open session may have a detrimental impact on the town's negotiation position, and we would not come back into open session.
I second.
I need a roll call vote. Mr. Crusoe.
Aye.
Mr. Durensis.
Based on advice of counsel, I'll say yes.
Okay, and I'm the same way. Based on advice of counsel, I'll say aye. Okay, the open session's now adjourned.
Are you going to have that here?
No, we'll go into the other room. David, this is for the